Welcome back. It's Lach and Raph here. We're on a mission to dramatically improve the lives of Australia's business executives and leaders, which is why today we're going to be talking about caffeine.
Caffeine. This is a touchy subject. Obviously, this is the one where if you don't have it, you have to get out of the country because it is one of our most loved stimulants or drugs, whatever you want to call this. I looked up some statistics. So, average Australian has 180 milligrams of caffeine per day, which if you don't know how much that is, you're going to find out in this episode. And I have no idea how they verify with this, but they say humans have had caffeine for thousands of years. They said like with coffee and tea. I mean, maybe they have. I'm guessing not like cold brew and stuff.
No.
But they had something.
I mean, they've had Nescafe for that long, I reckon. Nespresso.
I think the one in my cupboard's been around for that long. So what we're going to discuss about today is it safe? Is it dangerous? Delivery mechanisms, and if you still want to have it, which most people listen to this are still going to want to have it, how you can have it. So is it safe? Research shows that is generally safe up to about 400 milligrams per day. Some say up to 1 gram, which is a lot of caffeine. 1,000 milligrams of caffeine. Now, how much is that? So I would say each way about 80 milligrams in a coffee, right? So 400, an espresso coffee. So a double is 160. So 400 milligrams is like 5 shots, right? So we can get into more like timing and everything, but in general, the average Aussie is 180. They are far below an unsafe amount of caffeine. But some people can have more than 400, right? And it's generally not advised. The benefit of this is going to be great for your alertness. You obviously feel better. I think most people that have caffeine just like know what it does to them, right? Because they have it all the time. And it's fairly unlikely you're going to have way too much. But if you did have way too much, it'd be things like anxiety, can get heart issues. It generally can be dangerous for you, right? But I think in this episode, we're not talking about people that are taking more than a gram. We're talking about most people that are going to be having between like 80 and maybe 300 milligrams per day.
Yep.
So before we get into like how it could be dangerous, I would just say the ways that it can be, not ideal for you. If it's just like maybe isn't not working for me. The ones I'd see with clients in the gym at locker room where it's like not working for them is when they're saying, hey, like I feel really tired but wired. So like I have a lot of trouble winding down. They usually tell me this while they're drinking a coffee at the same time. And I'm like, I think maybe this could be a caffeine thing going on. It makes some red in the eyes. There's other ones. I know we've had a client where it was just like a big pre-workout type of guy. So like smash a really big pre-workout, big in the sense of like a lot of caffeine in these pre-workouts. And then they get really tired later in the day. And they're just talking about, just like such a big crash. But I get enough sleep. This is telling me like, hey, maybe you need to listen to this episode. Maybe there's some stuff here that caffeine's not working well for you. Okay, delivery mechanisms. So delivery mechanism, I'm talking about the different ways to get caffeine in your system. This is a really important topic. So the ways I thought of, well, there's ways I have: coffee, tea, energy drinks, and supplements. Right? Like you could just have caffeine.
Dark chocolate? How much is in dark chocolate?
I just had the most caffeine I've ever had from dark chocolate was when I just recently bought this it was like 100% cacao and you could mix it up into a drink and I got 30 milligrams.
Okay, so you don't have to really worry about it.
No, and that is a lot. That's 100% cacao and like a whole batch of it. So like you're talking small amounts there.
One thing that's also popular is Coke Zero.
Oh yeah.
35, 40 milligrams? I think
about 35. About 35 in a can. So in a bottle, you're up towards 50, 60. So pretty much a coffee.
600 ml bottle.
Yeah, 600 ml bottle.
335 can.
Give you some other numbers like, an energy drink is usually going to be 150 to 200. Australia actually has got pretty tight on the regulations here. So like I actually don't even think you can have 200 or more.
We're so boring. We're so boring.
In a ready to drink energy drink. If you go to Europe, you can probably get 2,000. But so that idea of like, it's like so like, have an energy drink, it's like so bad for you, so much caffeine. It's not really true. Like to be fair, you can definitely get coffees that have more caffeine. Definitely from Starbucks. You can get coffees with more caffeine than you're allowed to get in a ready-to-drink fridge at an Easy Mart. So I think that fear can be very unfounded. My own story on this is that one thing you probably notice with caffeine is that it does make things very addictive. So like, I've got addicted to so many different things and the constant between them all was it had caffeine in it. So when I first got into coffee, it was like that terrible drip coffee from America. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. But I think it's just probably because of the caffeine there.
Addiction.
Right? I get like favorite pre-workouts. I love that pre-workout. It's like, it tastes pretty good, but there is something in there. It's typically the caffeine that is making you get hooked on it. So just something to keep in mind. That often, when someone's like, dude, I could never take away this, I could never take away that. you probably could take away that thing. It's just the caffeine you're hooked to, right? If you were getting caffeine from something else. So something to consider there. The last thing I'll say on the delivery mechanism is just be very aware how many calories is in the delivery mechanism. So big problem I see clients get into is they really just want the caffeine hit and they end up having all these unnecessary calories, right? So you get like the double mocha, whatever from Starbucks, you can have like 300 calories. And these are not like great calories that makes you full. These are like calories that just you don't even notice.
Pure sugar.
Right?
Sugar fat.
And you're usually getting it just for the caffeine hit. So like, a long black, you get the caffeine hit and without all the calories. Same with like a sugary energy drink, right? So that's just something you really have to keep in mind. That is causing the weight gain, not the caffeine. Okay, so now we have talked about where you get it from. The most important thing with caffeine is how long it takes to get out of your system. And the reason we're going to hop onto that is in other episodes to talk about how important sleep is. We won't do it in this one, but essentially you need the caffeine out of your system to sleep well at night, or at least as much of it as possible. So the science has a half-life and a quarter life. This depends on the person, but somewhere between 4 to 6 hours, half of the caffeine is gone. So you have 100 milligrams at, let's say 6 a.m. in the morning. At 6 hours, say 12, you're down to 50. Then it halves again. So at 6 p.m., you are down to 25. And then at midnight, you're like 12 and a half, right? So like slowly goes down. I guess that means you never get to zero.
Well, no, apparently I was listening. I had a doctor comment because I always post about caffeine on LinkedIn, and he said it takes 5 half-lives generally for 1 serving of caffeine to leave your system.
So, if you're like me and you're having coffee every day, I never get to zero, right? Yeah. I would never get to zero. And that probably sounds pretty scary, but obviously millions of people have run this experiment for a long period of time. It doesn't seem to be too bad for you. So I wouldn't stress about that. But what is really important is how much you have going into when you're going to bed. So for me, I always love 10 a.m. as like a really good cutoff for me, right? Because I still got like 10 hours to go until I'm going to bed. That is going to work for most people. We usually say 8 to 12 hours. If you can cut out caffeine 8 to 12 hours before you go to bed, that's going to make a big difference. But I would say how much you have also makes a huge difference.
Yeah, of
like
course,
a very small amount of caffeine 4 hours before, you're probably okay. Huge amount of caffeine, like 400 milligram, double, triple coffee, 12 hours, 12 hours before, might still be too much for you.
Yeah.
And that's going to be individual.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've had the experience last year where I was having way too much caffeine. Again, probably around that 400 milligram mark. And I was
per day, right?
Day. Yeah. Noticing no effect from the caffeine. So I'd drink it. I wouldn't feel any stimulation. I would crash in the middle of the day. My training was going bad. And then my sleep was really, really poor. I just couldn't get into deep sleep. I always felt like I was just in a nap the whole night, that kind of early stage sleep. And then I cut back my caffeine when we got back from the US trip to 1 coffee a day, 80 milligrams. I had a few headaches with the withdrawal. My life is significantly better in every single way. I actually feel caffeine. It's funny because you have 400 milligrams, you cut it down to 80, you feel the 80 way more than you feel the 400 because you just built up your resensitized to it. I sleep so much better. I don't need it all the time. There's some days I go without it, and I don't crash in the afternoons as well.
Yeah, so I mean, there's going to be huge individual variance here, right? Huge individual variance. I would say that if you feel like you said, an example, if your sleep is being affected, I think adjusting your caffeine intake timing or quantity is mandatory.
Yep.
It's absolutely critical. If you feel really good on it and it's not affecting your sleep in any way, you probably leave it exactly as it is. But a few things when you are using it, I think you'll be clear on. One is that you need to decide on your cutoff time. I think if you don't have that roughly in your head, it is too tempting and you might be feeling a bit tired in the afternoon. Caffeine's not the solution there, right? A great night's sleep is likely going to be the solution to that, or hydration or something else. I would be very just aware of caffeine creep. I made that up, but I think it sounds pretty cool. Right? It's like C&C, caffeine creep.
I got it.
It's just my idea of, I just think, over time, obviously you get used to the amount of caffeine. Naturally, I find for me, it'll like often just creep up, right? It might creep up over like 6-9 months. It was like 180 milligrams, 200, 250, and you just get used to each level. You get to a certain point, you're like, okay, now it's too much. And you have to like go through a bit of a withdrawal stage, which kind of sucks, right? When you do that, if you can just be aware of that and notice like, oh, on the weekend, I had like quite a bit of extra coffee. You go back to Monday, you feel like you want the extra one. If you can just go back to your normal amount after 1 or 2 days of that, usually you're pretty happy again at that 1 or 2 days amount, right? So I would just be aware of that process. For me, that's something that happens pretty often. And then last thing I would always be aware of with caffeine is just where I'm getting it from and what that is doing for me, right? Coffee has a lot of health benefits. Whenever you see the health benefits, a lot of the time that is from the coffee. But if you're getting your caffeine from a source that has a ton of calories or just heaps of artificial stuff, or it's just not working for you for whatever reason, I would think about just switching caffeine sources. You may not have to cut it out entirely. I would just think about switching.
And last thing is there's no shame in ordering a decaf coffee. I do it all the time and I don't care. Yeah, so no shame in that. Okay, guys, that's caffeine. Hopefully you learned something there. You've got some tools now to take with you and maybe some warning signs. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll speak to you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you want to get the information in this episode and more, you can download the 30-day health optimization blueprint, which is all the tools and tactics that we use with our clients every day for 30 days. We'll deliver you an email in your inbox. Just head to lockerroomgym.com/blueprint to get the emails. That's lockerroomgym.com/blueprint.